Hello everyone, my name is Don, the movie reviewer, and today we're going to be talking about Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Where are you taking us?
Mexico.
What's in Mexico?
Mexicans.
This is the 9th film from writer and director Quentin Tarantino. I am a huge Quentin Tarantino fan. I love Pulp Fiction. I love Inglourious Basterds. I thought Jackie Brown was a great movie. And this movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, is like watching Jackie Brown. Jackie Brown is a slow-paced drama. And that's what Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is. A slow-paced drama.
Hey! You're Rick fucking Dalton. Don't you forget it.
We have Rick Dalton, who is played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and Leonardo DiCaprio gives a fantastic performance as always. Rick Dalton, in his own words, says that he is a has-been, because he used to be on a famous TV show, then he did a couple of small projects here and there where he played a bad guy, and now his career is going downhill. Cliff Booth, who is played by Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is the stunt double for Leonardo DiCaprio's character, and these two are best friends, and they're pretty much inseparable. Cliff is not only Rick Dalton's stunt double, he's his chauffeur, he fixes stuff around the house for him, he's basically his assistant. But Cliff is Rick Dalton's friend, so he doesn't care what he has to do for him. He just does whatever he can to help his friend Rick out.
My hands are registered as lethal weapons. We get into a fight, I accidentally kill you. I go to jail.
Anybody accidentally kills anybody in a fight, they go to jail. It's called manslaughter.
Writer and director Quentin Tarantino does what he does best in this movie, which is rewriting history. At the very beginning, it's established that what we think is going to happen at the end is going to happen, but how is Quentin Tarantino going to let that event play out? As the movie began, I had an idea of how I thought that whole infamous event was going to take place, and it didn't play out the way I thought it was. I thought it was going to play out like Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth were going to somehow miraculously save Sharon Tate from being killed by the Manson family, and then Sharon Tate would be blessed by them and say, oh yeah, I'm going to help you out in your career and whatnot, which is what happened, but it didn't happen in the way I predicted. Quentin Tarantino likes to go off on his violent outbursts in his movies, and this is no different, but the way it was set up, it made sense because there are these little subtle things at the beginning. Rick Dalton has a flamethrower, and he practiced with the flamethrower, so then at the end, it's not that bizarre that he uses a flamethrower to kill one of the Manson girls. But it is, Quentin Tarantino's over-the-top style, but it makes sense as bizarre as it is. I just wanted more with this movie. I thought this movie had no meat and potatoes to it. We just go through the motions and we see these characters go about their daily lives. I was interested in Leonardo DiCaprio's character because there was one sequence of events in this movie where he's on the set and he's in a Western and he's talking to the little girl and he gets mad at himself for not remembering his lines. And, he is so into himself that he feels that he is not giving it all he's got. And so that whole sequence when he's mad at himself and then the girl comes up to him and says,
"That was the best acting I've ever seen in my whole life."
Like you. Rick fucking Dalton.
that lifts up his spirits. So when I saw that whole entire sequence play out, it resonated with me too, and it made me feel good because the character felt good. But then when we see Brad Pitt's character, he's just doing random things. We do see a little bit of his home life, and he has a lovable dog. I will say that. I love the dog that he owned in this movie. I wish I had a dog like that. That dog was amazing. But then it feels like the whole Charles Manson, Sharon Tate thing is just sprinkled in here for dramatic effect. And there was one scene where Brad Pitt's character went to the Spawn Ranch, and the way Quentin Tarantino shot it with the music adding effect to it. It felt like I was watching a Rob Zombie horror movie, and it made me think that, yeah, Quentin Tarantino should just make a straight up horror movie, because the way this sequence on the Spawn Ranch was shot and the way it was edited and the music and play, it was intense. It was a very intense moment, even though nothing happened. The way it played out was intense, and then the conclusion to that was satisfying, even though it wasn't what you expected. It played on your expectations, and I like that. And another good moment in this movie is when we have Mike Moe playing Bruce Lee. Mwah, 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 mwah. That guy, Mike Moe, was fantastic. That scene, that whole entire scene where Brad Pitt was fighting Mike Moe and they were playing their characters, that emotion just came out of me immediately as soon as I saw him doing the accent. They had their fight. It was amazing. Mwah! Need I say more? They should really, like, if Quentin Tarantino makes another movie, he should make a Bruce Lee biopic with Mike Moe. Seriously. Then at the ending is intense because we are waiting for this event to happen. And that's what's kind of disappointing about this movie. It just feels like I'm waiting 2.5 hours for this event to take place, and I'm anticipating how Quentin Tarantino is going to flip the script with that. And then the rest of it leading into this ending is just filler to me, and I do feel some moments in there emotionally with certain things that happen, like with Mike Moe and him being Bruce Lee fighting Brad Pitt is great. The sequence on the Spawn Ranch is great. Seeing the dog that, Cliff Booth owns and all that stuff is great, but then everything else just feels like filler. Like, you see Sharon Tate's character, who's played by Margot Robbie, and she doesn't even have any lines in this movie. We just see her doing random stuff, but then she gets all giddy when she sees herself on screen, which made me like her, but I don't know who Sharon Tate is. I've never seen any of her movies, and the way she was depicted in this movie is just like she's there to have this ending take place, and then Quentin Tarantino can rewrite history. And that's all this is, and that's all I got from it. I didn't really get any meat and potatoes with these characters. I don't feel like they were fleshed out 100%. Then there's this thing with Cliff Booth and about him and his wife, and it's funny, but it's like, it's shrouded in mystery, and I'm like, okay. But there's no meat and potatoes here. There's nothing really that... I got sucked into it because the directing was great, the music was great, the atmosphere of it was great. Like, there's a sequence at the end before the main event happens, and it's showcasing, like, Quentin Tarantino's having an orgasm, showing you all of these vivid images of 1969 in Hollywood, and it's great. We see all of this classic stuff, and it resonated with me, and I felt it, even though I didn't grow up in that time. But with the characters, though, and the story, it's not, to me, there's not enough depth in here. It's just event, and then the big main event at the end, which we've been anticipating, but like I said, how is Quentin Tarantino going to flip the script with that? And it was satisfying, and it's, sort of what I expected. And then that's it. The movie's over. And so the movie, by the end of it, I enjoyed it, but it just left me a bit empty. It made me feel a bit empty inside by the end of it. My verdict for this movie is it's good. It's a good Quentin Tarantino movie. It's not one of my favorite Quentin Tarantino movies. I still love Pulp Fiction. I still love Inglourious Bastards. I even thought The Hateful Eight was great. But like I said at the beginning, this movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, is like Jackie Brown. It shows you these characters. They go through certain emotions in the events, and then you have your main event in there, which is what you've been waiting for, and that's the spectacle. But by the end, as you go through the motions and you witness everything and you get all of this, you soak it all in, by the end it just leaves you with an empty feeling a little bit. You're like, I enjoyed this because of the technical aspects, the directing, the music, how Quentin Tarantino pays attention to details. He's a fantastic director, and he's a fantastic writer, and he knows how to portray real characters on screen, but the story, to me, it just wasn't fleshed out as much as I wanted it to be. It didn't have a whole lot of depth to these characters. It just showed us it just showed them going through the motions, and that didn't really satisfy me. I like certain sequences in this movie, with the Bruce Lee thing and Spawn Ranch sequence, and the sequence at the end was cool, and the dog was great, but I just really wanted more with this movie. I wanted more depth with this movie. And that's all I have to say. So as always,
People, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a warm-hearted person who loved me till the end.